Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Mikhelishvili. I'm CEO of Amedea Pharma, also host of the Medical Innovation Olympics, and I welcome you to our first live session. This is a monthly session that we're kicking off in 2026. So for those of you who are joining or who are registered, there's a lot of news sources that are in your feed across many different channels that you come across, from the JPM, Morgan Conference, Healthcare Conference, and others. FT Financial Times Pharma, Medical Innovation Olympics, among them as well. But in case you don't have the time to actually systematically go through all of the various news sources, we've done it for you. I'm here with guest experts in the industry, investors, researchers, scientists, and you're going to hear what you need to do next. If you're a patient, if you're a payer, a researcher, investor, we have summarized this data for you systematically. We've used AI as well to help us. But now today, we're going to talk about the context, what to do next, how to bring these innovations that are igniting the flames and that are making fireworks in the healthcare industry to life together. So here today with me, we have the board of the Medical Innovation Olympics. They are the images of Medical Innovation Olympics. The board, there's many others who are joining us live as we speak, who are on the board, who are not here with us live. Chris Piedmont, one of them. Hello, Chris. He's commenting already. Heath Green, good to see you. I want first all of you to introduce yourselves. I hope the 2026 has been a great year so far for all of you. But I also want, before we do that, I want to invite all of you in the audience, those of you who may have attended JPM just now in San Francisco, which we're going to primarily talk about, but also others. Please comment, ask us questions, fill in the gaps as we go through this, summary today. So, who'd like to begin? I see you nodding, Melissa. Yeah, go ahead. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I sort of bring a strategy perspective. I've done research and worked in the strategy end of things for not only inside the medical industry, but at the intersection of the medical industry and technology and AI and strategy. And so I love being a part of this because fostering innovation is really all about fueling the future, fueling growth, fueling a better world. So it's great to be here.
Great, thank you. Melissa, I know you recently published a new book.
Yep.
And you are the moderator of the latest podcast on the All Out Coach show. All Out Coach podcast, available on all platforms. This is a very important practical AI in healthcare session that we've repurposed, brought to life for you from the last year's Medical Innovation Olympics. She's joined by incredible leaders in IT, AI, who are leading, company, initiatives and teams at Pfizer, Novo Nordisk, Vertex, as well. So make sure to follow Melissa. Janelle, John, who'd like to go next? And just reintroduce yourselves. And it's the first time I see you. I'm very excited to see you, all three of you. Go ahead,
Janelle. Janelle, do you want to go?
Oh, yeah.
No, well, I'm in the biohacking world, so I'm more like last week. I presented to the Innovation Select Committee, and from my accent, you'll tell I'm from England, of the House of Commons, looking at. I've been in the world of innovation for many years, as well as in the world of politics, because I spent 10 years as a member of the House of Commons in the UK. But more recently, I've got into the world of biohacking, which is things like obviously rapamycin and how do you what is aging, what can you do to improve gene expression, those sorts of questions. And obviously within that you study things like, what are the potential long-term effects of the fat jabs, as they may be called by somebody I don't quite like, but otherwise GLP-1 agonists. And the like, because there are pluses and minuses to all of these things. And so they're all quite interesting. I'm also vaguely involved in the AI side as well.
Yep. Great. And yes, so you're on the board, also an expert judge at our event, Medical Innovation Olympics. And since I'm making quite a few references to this event, those of you who are registered are going to receive a complimentary bonus VIP pass to attend this year's event. Okay, so the Olympic fever is in the air, everyone. Okay, and after all, we want to share some of the latest breakthroughs in innovation in order to attract more and more competitors this year as well, right? So thanks. Thank you very much, John. Janelle, good to see you.
I'm really happy to be here today. I've been a part of the Medical Innovation Olympics for 2 years now as an expert judge, and I am really excited for this year's Olympics. I've been in the medical industry, pharmaceutical industry for 17 years now, so I bring the medical affairs perspective. And I'm just looking forward to today's talk and what we're going to discuss. I think it's a really exciting event that we have going on today. So thank you for inviting me, Tim.
Yep, absolutely. My pleasure, Janelle. Yeah, you've been here since the beginning of this event. So we're getting some comments here from Chris, from Heath Green on the GLP comment there, John. Okay. We have... So we have our colleagues joining us from Europe as well. So talking about GLPs, let's look now at the topics. Some of the topics that surfaced to the top from analyzing all these various different news sources, Fierce Pharma, First Word Perspectives, you name it. We've all been systematically, analyzing them, and certainly the GLPs, obesity, cash pay medicine, right? A lot of the pharmaceutical companies are now going directly to patients. After all, we have, 140 million Americans who qualify for GLP treatments. And this is based on the latest statistics from the past president of Obesity Medicines Association, Angela Fitch, who mentioned that on the All Out Coach podcast last year. So, a lot of talk on GLPs and obesity medicine. This is maybe the product of the innovation out there, a lot of competition between Eli Lilly, Novo Nordisk, deals that are now coming to light from Eli Lilly, of course, with NVIDIA, right? That was just recently announced around the JPM. But John and Janelle, maybe you'd like to provide some of your expert commentary. And all the questions that I pose here are not just for the speakers. Again, please comment on these topics. But we're going to start with this first one.
Shall I have a little go?
Sure. Oh,
I'm supposed to, I'm quite a good, given my history is I used to have a BMI of about 35. And now I have a BMI of about 22, but I've done that by eating less food without using GLP-1. Although I think melatonin does help with I've frozen. No, there we go. Today, for instance, I'm just drinking water, but when I fast, I limit it to 1 day, because after a second day, you're likely to start churning into muscle mass, and that's the big issue with GLP-1 agonists, which is when you lose weight, unless you do a lot of exercise, you're always going to lose some muscle mass anyway. And the danger is that when you, particularly older people, if you put weight back on, then you tend to put on fat rather than muscle mass. Now, it's all well and good with mice, because when they fall over, they don't suffer so much. But human beings, being vertical, if they become frail and unstable in their later life, they can end up trapped in a situation where they fall over, go to hospital, lose even more muscle mass, and it's a spiral of decay. So, to some extent, GLP-1s, if you're going to use a GLP-1, they're a drug for life. Now, that's good for the drug companies because they get revenue all the time, but they are a drug for life, and there are arguments as to whether it's a longevity intervention or not. Obviously, obesity is not a very healthy thing in the long term, so there's that. But I think They're not necessarily. Yes, they achieve an objective for people, but then you're stuck on that, or you've got to find another way of maintaining your weight without using it. But there is a big danger that we'll end up with a lot of frailer people in years to come.
Yeah. Janelle, what were some of your takeaways from the news you've been reading from the JPM and just on obesity and GLP-1s?
So I think some of my key takeaways, and it goes along with what John was saying, is it's going to be about the outcomes and the new discoveries that are being made and how they progress with time. I think that the combination GLP-1, GIP might have a little bit more impact for the monthly dosing that Amgen is making with Maritide. But to John's point, it is going to still be a lifelong medication. And I think that's why the pills, the Wegovy pill, is really going to be something that people are going to be switching to from the injectables to maintain that medication and to maintain the dosing so that they can stay on it for longer periods of time. And I think the direct-to-patient payment system in that sense and the fixed dose, the fixed pricing is going to make it more available for patients. I think that's going to be really a new format for patients to have it accessible to them, that direct-to-patient payment system. I know that Novo is going through Ro, Costco, and Weight Watchers right now. So they're all utilizing those formats so that they can get it direct to patients through their Novo Care system. And they're really trying to upscale that program as quickly as possible to really get in place before Lilly launches in March with their new pill. So I think a lot of that direct to patient is going to be critical for patients to access these medications.
Yep, absolutely. It's a huge market, $150 billion market, and every big pharma wants to be a part of it. I wasn't able to attend JPM this year, which is one of the big impetus also for why I wanted to have this session together with all of you and others. But one company that I actually spoke to and I've been following is Vivani, where they're developing an injectable GLP-1 in order to address the adherence concerns as well, non-adherence issues. But ultimately they're quite safe, right? And they're they represent a big solution today, right now, to the to the market. And from an investment perspective, also it makes sense, right, for a lot of the companies to focus in this direction. Now, is the pendulum swinging? In one direction, and where are we with, let's say, the other end of the spectrum, where for quite a few years, when the economy was a little bit more certain, you had many more therapeutics being developed for rare diseases. And one insight that I was able to gather from a lot of the expert commentary at JPM was that the technology has really improved significantly for a lot of the rare diseases in CRISPR, for example, where where the FDA and our regulatory system is not advancing in the same in the same rhythm, right, consistently. Where if there is one, let's say, new therapeutic, the CRISPR technology has come has been so advanced that you do not need to have a new approval, a new application for one ultra rare disease that may affect 5 or 10 patients across the globe, right? It's a platform that needs to receive the approval. That was one of the suggestions that was made by at the JPM, and also from Sandoz Pharmaceuticals. I read a piece about their CEO who talked about how out of the 10,000 rare diseases, for 90% of them, the pharmaceutical process, the systems, our pharma and biotech operations are just not, and the regulatory system are just not fit for those to even come to market. So it's just something that I wanted to just bring up. But in addition to obesity, we have neurodegenerative disease. We're not just at JPM, but also at FT Pharma. There was a lot of discussion around Alzheimer's disease, right, and diagnostics as well, right? Where Roche is now leaning into the idea that owning both diagnostics and therapeutics gives them a franchise that can span the a lot of the cliffs, the patent cliffs that are now coming, a lot of which was discussed extensively. Any other comments on other therapeutic areas we should be watching, or that you're interested in? Yeah. Before we move on to the next.
Let me just add that that wider context of the why we ought to be watching some of these things, and that I think there's this, and you sort of tapped into the diagnostic side of things and owning that, and Janelle started talking about the distribution side of it, the how you go to market and how much that's transforming. I believe that the big innovation and shift that's happening in this entire industry has to do with that sort of diagnostic, distribution, development triangle. And there's a lot that's changing on the diagnostic and the distribution side, especially for these things that affect large swaths of the population. And while it's not yet mature, we haven't yet seen it. GLP-1s are the first time we've seen, other than, historical vaccinations, where most of the population, or a good percentage of the population, is a potential candidate for these things. And that takes medicine and drug development from being focused on small things, small cases, to being generally available. And that changes the model entirely. And I think that's the space I'm watching really carefully to see how that transforms everything. And the next space that's true for is these aging, dementia, all of these other things that are becoming more common for a larger swath of the population, in which individuals are self-identifying as much as doctors are diagnosing these problems. I mean, it's the spouses, it's the families who first identify issues when it comes to dementia and early stages of it. And that's changing a lot of things. So I feel like the reason we ought to be watching some of this drug development and this whole process is more than just for the specific drugs or the disease. It's for how this is going to work in the future, which I think is very different.
Yeah. All right. Since we started to talk about the therapeutics and we're getting into the details, let's look at some of the expert commentary on other potential modalities as well, Melissa. So RNA-based therapeutics, right? In vivo CAR T therapy as well, right? Next-gen bispecifics, antibody drug conjugates. It's a very crowded market in ADCs, Novartis now has been investing a lot of money into learning how to deliver RNA-based treatments beyond the liver, how it can go around manufacturing autologous, in CAR T as well. And there are more acquisitions coming in CAR T as well. Now, there's with terms of Alnilam has exploded in evaluation over 2025. It has de-risked its commercial aspect of RNA-based treatments as well. Some of the startups that I also am watching are Arrowhead as well, and next-gen bispecifics, as we mentioned, which need different targets and different payloads, for the safety, because the narrow therapeutic index is one of the things that limits the antibody drug conjugates. So we have to watch the payloads for the innovation. Now, with in terms of deal making overall, let's see. There are some facts I should probably mention just as we're synthesizing this information. It was a relatively quiet JPM. If we go back to JPM for a minute, in terms of deals, it looks like those large mergers are now, in the past, at least temporarily, and the sweet spot is somewhere from $5 to $15 billion deals. But here's some of the deals that you may have come across. Those of you who are watching, please comment as well. I just want to remind everyone. Eli Lilly acquired Ventyx Biosciences. Actis Oncology launched an IPO. Mirador Therapeutics raised $250 million Series B on the eve of JPM, right? And this was around right before JPM, and there were many different deals with Novartis and Sinuro, Lilly and Nvidia I mentioned, AbbVie with its VEGF for bispecific, where AbbVie paid Remegen $650 million upfront for its bispecific in product for solid tumors. Okay, and so the consensus from the panels from the JPM was that the interest rates have come off the peak, right? But capital is still not cheap, and the patent cliffs. There's a lot of very efficacious drugs that are now going to be coming off the market very soon. And so this now requires more innovation. And what was definitely a consensus from everything that I've read so far is that the FDA is looking for efficacy. It's no longer the case where you can just provide a new application and with just marginal, let's say, good safety profile. Safety is, of course, fundamental, but it has to be differentiated in terms of its efficacy. And the Dupixent was just one that was discussed extensively, right, because of its efficacy profile. So now, what is the hype from an investor standpoint, from a global,
Can I comment?
What's the tax on the tax on that hype in terms of the investments? Yeah, John.
I was going to come in on your one point. I'd like to add, if you don't mind.
Sure. Okay.
It's relatively recent news. I'm not quite sure how recent. It's sometime this week. The FDA, and okay, we don't really care so much about the FDA because they're not our regulatory body, but the FDA has agreed an IND application for a clinical trial of a thing called ER100, and it is actually quite significant. This is a test for or optical neuropathies. There's an NCT 07290244, and it's Life Bio who's got it, and it's significant because it's the first test of efficacy for what's called cellular reprogramming. And without going into all the sort of longevity stuff and what cellular reprogramming is about, there is a thing called the geroscience hypothesis. And the geroscience hypothesis is basically that there is a process of aging that is a biochemical process, and that it causes aging diseases. And if you intervene on that process, then you start dealing with all sorts of aging diseases. In this instance, macular degeneration is the sort of thing. Or you could have osteoporosis, or you could have sarcopenia, or you could have, there's lots and lots, and we can go into all, but the point about this is it's the first time that the FDA has actually agreed something which is actually on the geroscience hypothesis. Even if they're not testing that, they're just seeing what the efficacy is in that area. And it's much that I'm not persuaded by that hypothesis. It's interesting that the FDA has actually agreed the IND on this particular thing. And I think, again, you come down to this question of interventions and what interventions are around that actually keep people healthier so they don't suffer from diseases. GLP-1, it's sort of like, we can argue about GLP-1s. There are other ones in terms of getting rid of glucose in the blood, which, rather than discouraging people from eating, which may be better. But these are things which people would take who would not normally deem themselves ill necessarily, but they do them for improving their health. And then, I think really the ER100 thing is very significant, even if I don't actually think it'll work that well. But
okay, we need to drop that in the comment, actually, for the audience afterwards. Yep.
Well, I'll put a link to Yahoo in the comment,
okay.
And I'll put a link to the. So let's find comments, studio chat. So this is a Yahoo story on it, and it's that only went up 5 hours ago, but I've seen this around for 2 or 3 days. I'm not quite sure when it. And I've got the NCT. I've got the NCT thing here.
Okay, perfect. So we'll share that with our audience.
That's clinical trials. So but I think that is perhaps the most significant thing so far this year, and it may remain the most significant thing this year.
Okay.
In the long term.
Yeah. Okay, we'll certainly be watching that. Thank you, John. So I want to go to Melissa a little bit and just kind of talk about the insights from the hallways, conversations, JP, that you've heard about, on the reality, right? Of what was really, what is required for companies to be successful right now, given that there's so many patient cliffs, and here are the ones that were highlighted, right? Just looking at, the next 5 years, $80 billion in patents coming off, basically, right? So that includes Keytruda, Darzalex, and Dupixent. So how do, what's that hype tax on, for investors?
Yeah, it's sort of in some ways unprecedented territory. And for me, what I see is this interesting overlap between what's happening in the wider economy and market and what's happening in the healthcare and pharma market. You're seeing all of this uncertainty about an M&A, that the focus of M&A are these smaller deals, not just in pharma, but in every other industry as well. You're seeing cooling of large-scale acquisitions, large-scale mergers. And when you take that at the same time as this cliff where people are hungry for that next innovation, they're willing to go further down market to these smaller focus areas. And simultaneously, they're asking the questions more so about what's the distribution potential for these drugs? What's the market look like? Where before we've just seen, what's the total addressable market? That's been the major question. Now we're seeing different questions about how could we sell it? And it's much more in depth. And so companies with a better story about where those markets could go and what the audience might look like are starting to look a little more attractive for investors, both in terms of acquisition, but also in terms of investment. And those are driving the conversations even in the boardrooms as well. So I won't use the overused terminology of brave new world, but there are moments where it feels like that, where that's what the investors are talking about when you're at that juncture between investors and drug developers. There's certainly, I think the big companies, rather than looking for the next big drug, are looking how to monetize the current drugs they have to keep it from being a cliff and make it more like a glide path down, or maybe a chance to catch the next up current and expand their market. Which we've seen in the past with other drugs as they've expanded their usage. And I think that's where a lot of the larger companies are placing their bets.
Yep. Great. Yeah, thanks. Very well put. Well said there. So we have our audience is across the globe, it looks like. We have Heath Green, and he's excited about the new Eli Lilly manufacturing facility in the South. That he's informing us about. And then Steve Royal, of course, from Australia, our friend who's been involved with Medical Innovation Olympics since the beginning also. Thank you for your enthusiasm, Steve. Let us know what is on top of mind for you in terms of innovation right now as well, Steve, maybe what we're missing, or any questions as well, you or the others. Let's move on to the next topic, and this one is a big one, right? AI agentic workflows, and the new requirement of having proof. It's AI is becoming a default now, right? Yes, we're past that stage where it was hype before. You now have to have AI, and there's certain figures that came out of JPM as well as the Financial Times Pharma, where reading across expert panels, their LinkedIn posts, speakers. One of those statistics was that almost 30% of new drugs that are going to be approved will be discovered by AI in 2026. So that's a huge proposition there, right? So so it looks like the investors, they're looking for clinical outcomes, for proof that AI works, and we've already talked about the fact that most of the pilots fail; they don't scale, and it's not because of AI gaps, but it's because of how the onboarding, the training, and how it's really introduced, right? And a pilot that fails does not necessarily mean that it's a bad outcome. You have to find the use case for AI, right? And so, who would like to comment on this?
I just want to start with the one reminder that AI is awesome at a lot of things, but one of the things that it's really good at is generating new ideas. But it's at the very beginning. So when we think about AI-led innovation, we want to be really clear about how far into the generation of these new drugs AI is really getting us. And are they really expanding the beginning of the funnel only to create harder problems for us to solve in screening them down and monetizing it? So, I'm not sure. I think we want to think about how we talk about what AI is good at, what it's not, and how the drug industry will be able to leverage it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and GSK showed that they're already making tremendous improvements, where they're decreasing the failure rates from 80% down to 70%. Pfizer's CEO came out and he said he saved $5 to $6 billion because of AI. So These were just some of the highlights from the JPM. Yeah, John, sorry to interrupt.
It's obviously a useful tool, and I to be honest, I subscribe to 3 of them.
Okay.
But I get the cheaper one, which is $20 or something like that a month, rather than have a more expensive. And then I put the same question into the 3, and I see what the differences are between the answers. And it is without question, it's a useful tool. And everyone knows about AlphaFold, which was predicting how proteins would fold. And that now we're talking about alpha. I think it's called alpha proteome, which is to predict what protein would have particular effects. Which obviously, if you're going to be able to do that, you can. If you're talking about a protein, you can talk about what proteins might have a medical effect if you can get them in the cell in the right place, which is a little bit more complicated. But I think I'm not sure it's, people say, will AI solve aging? Well, I think in part I've already solved aging. I may not look it. But the thing is, will AI solve aging? Well, it'll help doing it. It helps checking things out. I find it very useful. And obviously it will help in a lot of areas, whether the hype tax for AI is over excessive. Not everything. If you go back to like 1910, lots of companies set up to make cars, and not everyone succeeded commercially. And we've got the same sort of situation. And obviously there is a global aspect to that because of things like DeepSeek and the like as well. But it will, everyone's probably. Well, one of the things you can say about them is they went from almost no users to I don't know exactly the numbers, but it's very large numbers of users over a period of about a year, and that's a major success. But I also find that it's the conventional wisdom that it tends to come out with. So if you've got something which is a minority viewpoint, it's hard to find in an LLM.
Yeah.
You can find it, but it's very hard to find.
Right. There was an announcement from AstraZeneca, just getting back to JPM also, that it acquired Medela AI as well. So not only do we have a Lilly's partnership with NVIDIA, but we have also AstraZeneca buying Medela AI. So it's no longer a lead, it looks like, but we're making a lot of progress. Now we have a comment here from Chris Piedmont, who reminds us that AI is improving, but in many cases it's not ready for production deployment, right? And this is why it's no longer hype, right? You need to show how it works. The data has to be clean, right? And Melissa, in that podcast and in that expert panel that you moderated, you provided a very practical distinction of how to consider AI. Could you, maybe just remind, share that with the audience?
I assume you're talking about the fact that at its heart, AI is a probabilistic driven methodology. And so if probabilities and playing the probabilities is good enough for the question that you're asking, that's great. If instead you need precision and certainty, you're going to have to augment that with a different kind of system. But it's highly likely that, if you run big enough simulation, it's just like any normal distribution curve. You're pretty sure if you pick any random number out of there, it's likely to be in the center of that normal distribution curve. But any one data element, if you need precision on that one data element that you're picking out of the bucket, and you have to be certain about that, then you want to be careful about how you're using AI. And that's why it's great for idea generation. It's great for efficiency. It's great for improving the main path. But if you're looking for specificity and absolute precision, you're not going to want to depend on it for that. But that's as long as you remember that, it's an incredibly powerful tool. And like John, I use AI for everything. And like all of us, we're using it more and more. It's a much more effective tool. But as John mentioned with the auto industry, and I love that example, because at the beginning of the automotive industry, there were thousands of car manufacturers. And it wasn't that, but most of them failed, as John points out. But the reason isn't because the industry and cars weren't the future. It's that the specific cars that would turn out to be the absolute best weren't yet identified, and all of the technologies that went into that. And I feel like that's the space that we're in right now, where I absolutely bet on AI as a great tool for everything we're doing. But I'm not specifically betting on a single AI tool, because I don't think we've yet understood who will be the dominant best models for this. So the top car manufacturers have yet to emerge from this new industry. And therefore, learning as much as we can about what makes one work versus another, using them in conjunction with one another. And that's what a lot of the drug companies are doing. They're not only buying their own capabilities, but they're placing multiple bets on multiple AI models, using them in conjunction with each other in order to get to the best solution. And that's what the winners are doing today to drive operational efficiencies, throughput, and increase the potential for discovering great drugs.
Yep.
Can I highlight what the link I've just put in the chat?
Yeah.
The link I've put in the chat is it's a case report, and it's called A Case of Bromism Influenced by Use of Artificial Intelligence, and it's a case report from 2025, and this was actually reported on the 5th of August, and it did go in the media. And basically, somebody said,
put that into the comments for anybody who's looking for that.
Yeah. I'm going to share that with you.
It's in the private. Oh yeah, put it in. I should have put it in comments rather than the chat. Okay,
it's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you've done it. Okay, well that's lovely.
Yeah,
well, what happened is somebody said to his AI, "I don't want to eat too much sodium chloride. What should I do?" And what's similar to sodium chloride? And the AI said sodium bromide. Obviously, sodium bromide is quite poisonous. Now, the problem here is this one of if you use an AI, and I use an AI for obviously for medical advice. I say, what do you think this might be? But if you offered a service doing that, who's going to insure it? Because there's a problem there, and B, it's a question of how you monitor it. Obviously, they're trying to bring in controls to monitor it. Fair enough, and that may have some effects. But this is, I think, Chris's point. It's not really production capable where you can say you can sue the AI or the provider of the AI if they kill you, or at least get you rather ill eating sodium bromide. But it's a good example, that one, because yes, sodium bromide, it's another halogen, isn't it? So it's it's a similar type of substance. It's just, and yes, people have a lot of experience of being poisoned with it, so that's quite useful.
So we have some comments that we're getting. I just want to make sure I address them and I recognize them. Thank you. Heath Green highlights operational efficiency. Okay, that it's a great benefit. Different elements of different strengths. I've absolutely agreed on that. He's actually working on an agentic platform with full HIPAA compliance. Great. We want to learn more about that. Maybe invite you on the next monthly call if you like. Now, speaking of internal operational efficiency, right? There are other champions. You guys both talked about, and Melissa especially, about champions, the winners with AI. Sanofi is certainly one. Yes, it has a new CRL that it has received, but Paul Hudson is all in on AI. It's clear. Its CEO. He refers to this as snackable AI, where they're getting AI, on operations expertise and input from everything. From at any given point on his cell phone, he can check if there's a supply and demand issue. somewhere else. And for example, in one of the sites, for example, he mentioned that in one of the expert panels around JPM. And Bausch and Lomb as well is a company that is actually using AI to eliminate repetitive tasks. Brett Saunders spoke about that in order to increase judgment, creativity, and strategic thinking. I just wanted to kind of mention that. Vijay Pandit was an expert panelist and an investor, and he talked a little bit about how AI may impact job security. And his quote was very interesting, and I want to just share it with you. He said, "The greatest job security is the company that you own," pointing to entrepreneurship as the durable path in an AI-driven economy. And it's something to, I think about, right? And so yeah, let's see. There's another comment here I'm getting. Just want to make sure I share it with all of you. This is from Juan Carlos Pleites. He emphasizes the instrumental role of training in AI. And yeah, I mean, all of you, I think, have a lot of experience with that, and know the difference between success and failure.
Yeah,
so
the other quote that I've seen in the research from Harvard Business School, and also MIT through their Sloan School, has confirmed that and let me distill it down to the following quote: the winners and losers when it comes to AI innovation will fall out as this: people who don't use AI as active tools in their daily work will lose their potential roles in favor of those who know how to use it. So the ultimate winners are people who leverage it well. And the other leader that I worked with summed up AI like this: it's like having an entire team of college interns. They're really smart, often right, always sure, and really cheap. So if you figure out how to use them really well to make yourself more capable, more appropriate, and you use the data that they can comb through to tee up some things with your own judgment, those are the people and those are the companies that are going to win. And that's what we're seeing all of these medical companies do, is they're using it like these incredibly talented new researchers who can comb through a lot of stuff, get them better recommendations, and then testing it with the judgment that they have.
Yeah, I see Janelle, you nodding there. Did you want to comment?
I was going to say that not only are pharmaceutical companies and medical companies using them for drug development, but they're also training and putting their medical affairs teams through certificate training on how to use AI. So they're making sure that their people that are in the field and in medical information actually know how to use AI to do their jobs now. So it's a training that's ongoing.
Right. And there's the next podcast that's going to be released soon, is also featured from the last year's Medical Innovation Olympics in October, where we shared a lot of latest statistics with HR executives. And they shared the data showing that there's a 28% premium among job candidates who demonstrate the ability to use AI, have practical AI knowledge as well. So to stay tuned for that.
Using Excel used to be. So if you could actually use Excel yourself, and Excel particularly, because obviously it's slightly more complex than Microsoft Word, but it's be able to use the modern tools. My biggest concern actually is that people need a role in life and a role in society. And although we can have I'm thinking a bit of over the top to say an age of abundance, but we can have an age when things are more readily available to people, although there are the complexes with housing and the like. But people need a role in society as well, psychologically, and I think that's a danger for people who don't have a niche in the future. but that's always been an issue, and it's an issue in the UK definitely, because we have what's called NEETs, not in education, employment, or training, NEET, and that's not good for people.
Yeah, John. So you mentioned the UK, and we have about 8 minutes left here. And we all promised to our audience that they're going to leave with some calls to action, right? How can they bring some of these flames and fireworks, highlights, breakthroughs, whatever you would like to call them, from JPM and a lot of the founders and investors into practice? And let's talk a little bit about the policy. I want to go to you next, John, because what we saw here at the JPM from some of the highlights that we synthesized using AI as well, right, is that a lot of it seems like because of the new regulations, about 14 of 17 companies in the United States have already adapted. They've signed the new policies, regulations with Trump. The UK is actually launching some products for, let's say, from neurodegenerative disease or from CNS, such as Cobenfy, schizophrenia drug in the UK at the same price as in the United States now. So it looks like the US is kind of the default price. So what are some of the implications on the policy and access? How can we make sure that we distribute this innovation, like Janelle mentioned at the beginning, to the right?
Well, the lot of all of this stuff comes into financial planning, and because it's like people talk about debt and innovation. Well, it's very difficult to borrow money for something that doesn't have a revenue stream. If you've got something which you can forecast a revenue stream with some certainty, you might be able to borrow some money for it. But for something that's actually innovation, it needs equity, because basically the banks want to get their money back. So the interest rate is not the issue. Yes, if you charge a very high interest rate, you're effectively using it as equity. But if you've got something where you can see there's money coming in, you just need to tide it over a bit, it's slightly different. Now, I do worry about the practicalities of some of the policies which are implemented by your administration in lots of different areas.
Okay.
Because they don't necessarily factor in the need for people to run a business, to have certainty, to have predictability, that sort of stuff. So for me, it's really rather unpredictable at the moment. So we'll just have to see where things go.
Yep. I see, Melissa, you sharing. Would you like to share, just maybe give context to what you just shared in the comment? Is it related to the policy?
The two articles really are about what does McKinsey see some of the trends being across the board in the healthcare industry. And that includes payers and providers, which I think is an interesting view to look at, because ultimately they're the touch points to either the revenue stream or the consumers. But the second article that I put in, I think reminds us all that the biggest space for innovation in this is modularity and putting in things that allow you to plug and play different tools in order to get to the outcomes that you're looking for, which is kind of the concept you guys have just been covering, which is that there's lots of different things. Companies are leaning into AI tools and other things. It's just some interesting perspective on where things are going that supports a lot of the discussions we've been having here today.
Yeah. And, what implications does this have on the knowledge and the science, right? Because now it looks like, China is really competing in the quality of the clinical trials. R&D investments. So it looks like, something that was posed by across many different expert panels at JPM, at the Financial Times conference, was that the R&D investments now have to also come back to the United States, not just manufacturing, which we're, again, the pendulum is swinging. Where do you balance it, right? That's really the question. There's a National Security Commission report that just came out in January. And China's regulatory structure again enables that transition from preclinical to phase 1 faster, it seems like. So the question is, how can we maintain that FDA's gold standard while incentivizing the research? But from a lot of the CEOs' comments across the JPM and these kind of Finance Times as well, it seems like the FDA is being much more direct in their the context of the conversations and how they're taking place. It appears so. That was refreshing to see, even though of course we know that the FDA is understaffed still, right? But they are using more AI, right? There's been less approvals than we've been accustomed to seeing last year. So all right, so let's talk about the Medical Innovation Olympics, right? We have the Olympics taking place in February. And by the way, I do have an announcement. I'm going to be there physically. I'm actually taking my kids and family. I'm going to be at the Olympics in February. So next time we speak, and stay tuned for the date here on LinkedIn and on Amedea Pharma, it's going to be probably end of February. But I'll actually be there in Milan at the Winter Olympics. This is going to be the first Olympics I've been. Want the family to experience it. But we're building in a community. We're starting it off this month. I attended an AI in Medical Affairs conference in January 22nd here in New York City, and I was so pleasantly surprised when I ran into a couple of leaders in the field, in the industry, whom I didn't know personally. In person, I hadn't met in person, but they told me, "Hey, I know I participated in Medical Innovation Olympics." So I want to invite all of you to compete, to register, to watch what we're doing, the intensity of the competition across drugs, devices, diagnostics, medtech, medical affairs, and with the kinds of tracks that we're going to be looking for are longevity, women's health. We didn't talk a little bit about women's health and DEI, which I meant to, but there's going to be a report, more detailed report, a summary that I'll share in the blog. But I want to leave some of the last words to you in terms of what kind of connections have you made as a result of the event that you're organizing together with me? And why is it valuable to you personally, and why should others join and follow the Medical Innovation Olympics?
So I've actually connected with Noor. He was one of the competitors, and Sherry Sultana, and just had discussions with them about their project and where they're headed and how they're moving it forward. And it was really great discussions and learning more about what they're doing. So that's one of the conversations that I've had since the Olympics ended, and it was really enlightening.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm working on a project with a past competitor who competed twice myself. I can speak from experience as well. But yeah, Melissa, John.
Well, to me, it's participating in discussions about innovation, because innovation will always be important. I suppose the drugs world has had its difficulties because a lot of drugs were found, and a lot of them were, to be honest, natural substances repurposed for some other purpose. And we're moving on from that to inventing our own molecules now. But it is a way. Learning is very important. You learn by getting novelty and engaging with people in the Olympics and things like that.
Yeah. And we've had tremendous winners last year. We raised new standards. We had Regenova, as well as in the concept category, drug discovery that speeds up discovery in days, not months. So it was certainly accompanied by a lot of proof, as well as, of course, David Mead with his product that's advancing supply and demand with cyclosporin as well. And so there's more. We're going to share the comments as well with everyone, and the article, which actually summarizes all of the accomplishments and previous winners and competitors. I know many of you are joining here. We want to see you again this year. What new ideas you bring, products and concepts. Stay tuned for the next monthly event and topics that we're going to come up with. And welcome to the community. This first, thanks for joining, everyone. Thank you. Next time you'll see me, I'll have some insights from the Olympics, from the Winter Olympics. All right. Bye. See you all.